Summer, when she was born, she didn't want her mother. She only wanted me.
Wow.
And that just blew me away. I just couldn't believe it, that she only wanted me. And Candus coerced her all these years by taking her to all these places, fishing and stuff. And it took all this time to get, but Summer loved her mother. It took time. And I don't know why she was just so attached to me like that. I've never had anything like that happen to me before. To me, it's one or the other because of the four dreams. To me, it's either someone that's got money has her somewhere and seen her on Facebook and felt sorry for her, whatever the reasoning is, or her to get rid of evidence, and then were her last thoughts.
So do you think they would have hurt her or they would have sold her?
I think they probably were, I wouldn't, who in the world, I wished I knew who would buy a kid. I wished I knew that. I really do.
Me too.
Because I would surely go after him. I wouldn't hesitate. Where would you even look? I got some police and they were just dumbfounded.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of places that you can look, but,
I even asked them if I could pose as a sicko for them and see what we could come up with. And they're like, oh, no. But, whatever. But I guess they don't have to do that. They do it all online and stuff like that, I guess.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that goes on.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad to have you guys here today. Thank you so much to those of you that do subscribe, and please remember to turn on the bell so that I can have you back next time. So there are some interesting points that came out from Chris McDonough. He mentions the boys and says that they had been playing hide and seek, and I do have some questions about that. I would tend to believe the boys. If the boys said that, I would tend to go with them versus what the parents said, but we haven't heard Candus or Dawn talk about the boys and Summer playing hide and go seek. And so I would think, is that something that they're trying to hide, that they don't want to get into that, and so they created a whole other story with quite a bit of detail. The story revolving around planting flowers and no mention of hide and seek. Does that mean that they were playing hide and seek with Summer? I don't think that it means they're playing hide and seek on a video game, that they're on their device playing hide and seek. I'm thinking that they were out on the hill and playing hide and seek. Is it true that the last place where they saw Summer was on her swing?
It's been rough, but we we believe in resurrection. So when her mother come in, she says, where's Summer? She went down in the basement. She didn't answer, so she went down there and she was gone. So she went out the basement door, which was unlocked, and we haven't seen her since.
Me and my mother and her were planting flowers. And we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from Grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers. And I said, okay. And I walked her all the way over to the porch. And I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV. And I told the boys, I said, watch Summer. I'll be back. And within 2 minutes, I came back. And I asked the boys where their sister was. And they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times. And I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone.
That is some detail which we haven't heard coming from Candus. Not Candus and not Dawn. They haven't mentioned anything about Summer being on her swing. But Dawn says that wanting to be outside was Summer's downfall.
There is, her being tormented or locked in a dungeon or basement or something, because she loved to be outside all the time. That was her, unfortunately, her downfall. 'Cause a lot of times the boys would be inside and we'd be like, "Where's Summer? Why'd you leave her out there alone? Go get Summer now." And that's happened over and over again. And we'd come out and she would always be close by, but we was always coming up. She had to be outside. She was an outdoor person. And
She loved to be outside.
Yep. And I'm so afraid that she's locked away.
That is an interesting word that he chooses, because it makes you wonder, did she have a downfall? Did she fall from that swing that she wanted to be outside all the time? Anyway, so that is some information which is quite interesting. And another thing we find out is that the 911 call, the first call, was at 6:23, and that Don had said that he was the first one there at the property, which took him about 40 minutes, is what he told Chris McDonough, but the police officers said that they were there first. So what is Don referring to? Is he confused? Did he have a hard time remembering the details and he let that slip out? Or was he there earlier in the afternoon and he left not realizing? It is strange. So I don't quite see why he would fumble up, why Don would say to Chris McDonough that he was there before the police officers arrived. Because he says that he pulls to the house and he goes round the way where the shed is, and he realizes that the boys are searching, and at that point he knows that Summer is gone. But what Chris McDonough is saying is that the police officers were there first. So that just makes me think that Don must have been really confused, or he let that out by mistake. Now, what do you guys make of that? How could it be that Don would be there first, then the officers would see him when they arrived? And of course they know. They know if, at this point, because they arrived there and they either see Don's vehicle or they see Dawn and either Candus is there or she's not. But if he's saying that he was there first, then where exactly was he? And then we have this new bit of information from Chris McDonough. I guess it's not really new, but it was one of the little pieces of information that he took down on his notepad. And of course we know from the beginning that Don was saying that he was there first, but it has been confirmed by Chris McDonough that the officers said they were there first. And I always thought to myself, when it's a missing child, of course, they're going to arrive there pretty fast. And I doubt it's going to take them 40 minutes to get there. So I do wonder if it's true that the boys were playing hide and seek. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. When you're young and you've got siblings, that's a fun game to play. That's the kind of thing which we used to do when I was a kid. We'd all play hide and seek. And, some kids would hide behind, let's say, behind a tree or behind a car or behind whatever you could find, you'd go and hide. And we used to play, into the night. it would get dark and you play hide and seek in the summer, that's fine if they were playing hide and seek, but we haven't heard that come out from Candus. She hasn't mentioned that, and I wonder if she's trying for some reason not to let that out. I wonder why that would be a secret if it's true. I mean, is there something wrong with saying that? Or is it too close for comfort? And then if this whole thing has something to do with Summer's downfall, for example, falling from the swing, then wouldn't there be evidence, around the swing or, down below the swing on the ground, evidence of a fall, maybe she bumped into the tree or something, then in that case there would be something there which would show that she bumped up against that tree and she fell off. And of course, you really can't blame, I guess you can't really blame anyone. You can't blame the brothers for that. I suppose they should have watched her more carefully, but of course that wouldn't be the brothers' fault, to have to be responsible for your young sister. That's not their responsibility. But I still don't have the story clear because it's just a little piece of information, and I don't understand if they were playing hide and seek together and they saw Summer go down to the basement and that she was playing with them, or if it was them, that they were playing hide and seek outside and then they lost track of Summer. And if then somebody else steps into the picture, if the father was home early and the boys were there, Dawn was there, and Summer, and then the grandmother maybe was sleeping, and maybe Candus left the property for some reason. Maybe she went to get something, I don't know what, but that is another piece of information which I don't understand why it is that we haven't heard that from Candus or Dawn, that they're not saying that. But Dawn was saying that the boys were playing with their video games, and he was more stressing towards that they would stare at their phones and at their tablets, and they would basically just be playing with those video games all the time. So he doesn't mention them outside playing hide and seek, but he lets out, as we all know, he says with his own words that Summer's downfall was that she had to be outside. And then he goes on and says, he had to always tell the boys, go get Summer. Go get Summer. He'd say, where is she? And that was for them, for the brothers to go and find their sister. And he'd always have to remind them to go and get Summer. And so that is an indication more towards that she would walk away and that she would maybe wander around or, play or maybe even chase the dogs, follow the dogs. If the dogs are sniffing around the property, and we see her always in the photos with the dogs, with the puppies, and of course those puppies are going to explore, and the cats as well, and so Summer being very close with them, then of course she's going to follow with them, with those dogs and with the cats. And so that does seem to make sense. That goes along with her being outdoors and maybe leaving the basement and going outside and maybe onto her swing, and then nobody was watching her. But the pieces don't quite fit together yet. It still seems like we're missing something. We're definitely missing something. I don't know if you guys remember that there was going to be a big break in the case, and Candus was going to tell Ernie something, and then he was there at night, in the middle of the night, in the darkness. There were some police officers there, and we didn't see Candus, and so that was the last of that, and we never did get to see her come out again.
And what were you in custody for? Can I ask you that?
Well,
I mean, I can find out. You know that.
Well, yeah. Somebody was. This guy is having a hard time with. He was messing with my sister, causing her a lot of trouble, and that's just an excuse. There's no excuse for what I did. But I hot-wired his truck. I took everything out of his garage, Harley stuff, everything, and loaded through the back truck and sold the truck and all for nothing. But there's no excuse. I did what I did. It was wrong.
Okay. I've heard worse. Go ahead.
Yeah, but yeah, that. you know, stuff like that.
What else you've been locked up for? I mean, what other things have you done?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Come on.
I mean, I've made trips to Mexico. You know.
Were you running? Were you running? Were you running?
Yeah, I bought. You know, and totaled a brand new truck coming back out of Mexico once, just up for days on end, thinking I'd get out in the middle of nowhere, think the Indians after me. I'd get back out on the freeway, and I think the cops after me. I didn't know which way to turn. Out in the middle of the desert, you know.
And you used to take the 5 down or the 15?
Yeah. I think, you know, we went to El Paso.
Oh, yeah, Texas.
Yeah. And I just turned, you know, and that turned into a big nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, that's like the
car. I was lost out there in southern Utah somewhere. I didn't know which end was up or down. Yeah.
So you were running dope. You've done, you know, it sounds like you stole the guy's truck, and then.
Well, let's just say I tried to run dope. Okay. It's hard for a doper to run dope.
Yeah, that is a.
I ain't gonna lie to you.
That's a very true story, man. Right there.
Yeah.
Right there. And now, what about when this thought process comes to my mind here for a minute about what was she wearing that morning when you?
The same. Well, when she was asleep next to me, you know, I'm not sure. As I just woke up and they stayed in bed and I got gone to work. And I'm not sure, but I know the picture of her wearing where she's asleep by the milk jugs. That's what she was wearing when she was kidnapped.
Okay, so it's the same outfit.
Yes.
And is that the outfit Candus said did she change when she went back in the house, or do we know?
I don't think so. That's the outfit she was going to wear for her first day of school.
Oh, so this is the outfit. So it had some sentimental value for her.
Yeah.
Did she pick it out?
I don't know. I'm always at work. I'm glad she got to go to all these places with her daughter. You know, for the first 2 years, 18 months or so, Summer, when she was born, she didn't want her mother. She only wanted me.
Wow.
And that just blew me away. I just couldn't believe it, you know, that she only wanted me. And Candus coerced her all these years by taking her to all these places, fishing and stuff. And it took all this time to get, but Summer loved her mother. You know, it took time. And I don't know why she was just so attached to me like that. I've never had anything like that happen to me before. And I was just so thankful, you know, I thank God, you know. Yeah. 'Cause I've never had anybody love me like that.
Yeah. No, I get it. What about, I want, now this one's going to be a hard question, okay? So.
It's all right, brother. It's all right.
Oh, well, I'm, you know, being straight with you. So.
Right.
What, your ex-wife, years ago, tell me about that scenario where, you know, she went over and got the kids.
My ex-wife got the kids. I don't know what you're talking about there.
Well, she said that, you know, by the way, are you guys still on talking terms? Just, I might as well clear this.
Yeah, we're talking. Yeah, I don't have no problem with her. I think she's gotten clean. Okay. She's had years of meth problems, but I think she's finally gotten clean and she's somewhat got her head straightened out.
Okay.
And so we've been talking, but there was, you know, where she said that you were kind of spun out and, you know, that your kids got with somebody else and, you know, she didn't know about it and she went and got them. I don't know anything about that. I have no idea. I never heard that, anything like that.
Okay. And that's why I'm asking you. I mean, right now, I always go right to the source, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that kicks down a lot of information either way. And no matter what, I mean, people are going to, you know, if she tells somebody this or that, there's a lot of he said, she said.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. thing for me was really tough for me to get over for years, and I'm not going to say a lie to you.
Are you doing any drugs now? And will the cops?
No.
Did they take your blood?
They test us, yes. I'm clean. I don't do nothing. I won't even pick up a beer.
Okay, so they...
Well, for one thing, if I drink beer, then I do want that crap, so I won't even touch a beer.
Right, but they took your blood.
Yeah, they drug test us. Yes.
Yeah, that's typical in these kind of high profiles. Right.
We thought possibly she would be free to speak her mind and say whatever it is. If she had been under his thumb, then she could come out, not really having to worry that he's right there and that she'll face whatever physical abuse, if that's the case, that she wouldn't have to face that or worry about that because he's, safely locked away behind bars. But that didn't really happen. She didn't really throw him under the bus. And so I don't really know how that's going to affect things. Like, if it was a case of like a missing child, that child is missing, then you probably wouldn't want to leave that property. You probably want to make sure that you're there just in case the child, let's say, returns back or whatever. It's just, you'd be extra on high alert kind of thing. Just more worried. That's the last place where you were with your child and you would want to stay there. Makes sense, but who knows, maybe not. Let me know what you guys think about that. And it is strange that, looking back, that Dawn wanted them to move to Utah. And I don't know if that has more to do with the whole situation. Him returning back to Tennessee, and I think that is when we see a change in the photos, when we see a difference in Candus and Summer, the drastic changes in their hair, and it just seems like things went downhill when he returned. And he wanted them to leave, but Candus didn't want to. So that is kind of interesting, but there have been suspicions that maybe she's there, that maybe she walked off, and that was what the sheriff had been saying over and over, that he wanted people, the neighbors, to check their properties.
In my position and my detectives, everywhere we go, everybody wants to share their opinion, which is, we understand that. But 99.9% of things that people are posting or saying, we've already looked into and taken care of.
Lawson says anyone living in roughly 5-mile radius of the Beach Creek community should look at their trail or security camera footage again from the day Summer disappeared.
And sometimes people will think, well, I saw that, but it probably wouldn't mean anything. But the least little thing to us may be something huge. So that's why we ask for the public, everything they see, to continue to check their property, their outbuildings and different things like that.
What kind of a toll has this taken on your department?
Mentally, physically, and emotionally. A lot of my officers have small children. They have grandchildren, and we know what goes through our mind if that would be our child or grandchild. And plus, us spending so much time in Beach Creek for 3 weeks, but my office never stopped. We're still answering all the same amount of calls, still, bringing people to jail, investigating other cases, and it just wires you out.
He had been asking early on, and they did continue asking, but I guess that the searches that they didn't include the neighbors' properties, but they would have searched the Ben Hill property, definitely. I mean, how could they not search that property? That would have been the main, I guess you could say, the central point, the starting point, and they would go outward from the house. And so I guess they would have to stop, because they wouldn't be able to trespass onto a neighbor's property unless they were invited. But it seems that the neighbors didn't want the law, the investigation, to have detectives or search parties to come onto their land, and that is why the sheriff made that plea for neighbors to please search their properties, just in case Summer had wandered off. And so, regardless of whether they were, let's say, cooperating with the sheriff or law enforcement, I mean, I'm sure that people would have searched their properties. Wouldn't you want to know if there was a neighbor who had lost their child? Then you would search your property. And I mean, even if you had something to hide, if they had something which they didn't want seen on their property, because of all of the talk of the substance abuse in that area, I can understand that possibly they didn't want to have law enforcement come onto their property and search a property, but on their own, each neighbor would, of course, have checked out their own land, their own outbuildings. If you've got a piece of land, even if you are, let's say, if you have some kind of illegal business that you're running on that land, you still would check to see if somebody has a child missing. Then you're going to very carefully go over your land and you're going to check and see, like, if you have a well, if you have an area where it's not visible, then you're going to have a look. You're going to have a look and see. But who knows? Who knows? Because they did keep asking. That was one of the things, and they kept searching in the Beach Creek area. And that kind of makes me think that they must have had the pings, the information from the cell phones, the cellular data must have led them back to the Beach Creek area. Otherwise, they would be, let's see, another indication, they would be going towards another area. And so, of course, we know that to this point they haven't found anything, not like a piece of clothing, nothing. And I mean, that area it's pretty rugged terrain, but they have had a few searches and nothing has come up. It makes me think and go back to the whole idea that there was some kind of a handoff, that there was a meetup where Dawn would have met up with Candus. And to tell you the truth, this is my suspicion. This is not a fact. This is more of a theory or speculation, but I did get the feeling, or did question, that whether or not the video, when we see Summer in the back seat, that is actually driving towards Dawn. Now, Candus tells us that she thought it was cute and that Summer had both of her arms up. Both arms were up the way Dawn sleeps. She had both arms up behind her head, and that is the way Dawn sleeps, and that she thought that was cute, that Summer was doing that the same way, just like her father. But I was thinking that it's more likely that she was actually taking Summer to her father, going along with the story that they were going to take her to get help. The last thing Candus knew was that Summer wasn't feeling well, and that she was going to take her to Dawn to see what was wrong, or to maybe take her to emergency or whatever. But that vehicle, or that video, is of Candus going towards Dawn, or taking that video for Dawn to show him, or just as a last video. Basically, the concern was that she wasn't well, that Summer wasn't well. But another question has come up, and that is the last clothing that she was wearing, that she was reported to be wearing a pink shirt and gray pants. If she was last wearing, if, for example, if she was at home and she did get out of the vehicle, let's say she got out and she did make it into the house, and so then if the last outfit that she's wearing was a pink shirt and gray pants, then that means that she removed those clothing, that she removed her first day of school clothing. And so is that something that they found at the property? Was that removed? Was that one of the things that, would have been washed? If it's true that Candus did a load of laundry, was that found? And was a bathing suit found? Or is she actually wearing her bathing suit under those clothes? Is Summer actually dressed with her bathing suit, and then they put that tracksuit on top of it, is what I'm wondering. Now, as far as Candus and the whole situation with Dawn, if it was him, and I think by now she would have realized that, she would have realized that Dawn had taken her. She didn't know. Maybe she was asleep. Maybe she had left the property, and then when she got back, Summer was gone. But after a year of time having gone by, And having heard all the speculation, she would realize, if it's true, if that is the case, that is one of the theories, that maybe Don was there and that he's the one that took her without Candus knowing. By now she would have realized that, and she would have spoken to the investigators and said, you know what, I was actually not there, and I think my husband might have been back, or actually my husband was back and he's told me not to say that. We decided not to tell the investigators that he'd come back for some reason, and I agreed to it, but Candus hasn't done that. She hasn't come out and said anything against Don. So it's almost as if she can't go against him because basically he's helping her. That is what it looks like. It looks that way. I was thinking that before Don had gone behind bars, I was thinking that Candus really couldn't talk, and that is why, we saw him, it was always Don talking, and she was in the background, and I thought, he won't let her talk. He's not letting her talk. Then he was finally gone, and I thought, okay, she will eventually come out, and we're going to find out the truth. They did start talking, and then she did do that first live, and she did more lives, and I think they were collecting money for a while there. Then eventually we heard from the grandmother. She finally came out. It kind of made me think that they were more free to talk because Don wasn't there. They never really did turn on him. And don't you think that if it was him, then, if he was, let's say he's an abusive husband and he's finally behind bars, you would think that they would say, hey, we're safe now. The grandmother would say to her, you're safe, Candus. You can finally come out and tell them what your suspicions are. Tell them that you don't really know what happened and that you weren't there. And then when you got back, Summer was gone or whatever, didn't you guys think that that's what was going to happen? I thought for sure that if it was him, that she would come out and say something. Either that she was going to say that she didn't know if it's him, but that she was suspecting that, or that she was going to just totally come out and, say that she was afraid and that she couldn't say anything and that she has been suspicious. Just basically maybe not throw him under the bus, but give the investigators some kind of clue towards whatever lies that were told. But like I said, that hasn't happened. So I don't know if you guys are surprised the way I am, but it leads me to think that basically she can't turn on him because he's helping her. And I know some of you think that the reason why she's not talking is because it's both of them, that they're both involved in some kind of an arrangement, that they both planned it. There's a lot of people who who their mind goes to the worst possible theory, and they don't put anything past these two as far as the most kind of depraved ideas. I know some of you don't blink an eye, with that kind of a theory. You pretty much see them in a really bad light. But then there's others of us that have more of a hard time believing those kinds of ideas, like the trafficking, that kind of stuff. It's kind of hard to believe that a parent would do that, and yet there is that indication with the story that he had tried to do that in the past. So anyways, that is what we're hearing, and with this whole bit of information having to do with playing hide and seek, still, like I said, I don't know. Does that mean that the boys were playing hide and seek just with the boys, and that they lost track of Summer? Or does that mean that they were playing hide and seek with Summer? They say that she went downstairs. So is it possible that that's true, that they saw her go down? If they say it, I do tend more to believe it. And then if they say it, and Candus is not saying that, then that's another thing which we have two different stories, because the grandmother's story, Dawn's story, and Candus's story doesn't talk about Summer playing hide and seek with her brothers. They say that the last thing that happened was that she went downstairs. I don't know, somebody's not telling the truth. Somebody is not giving us the full story. And we have another facet, another piece of the puzzle. And I tend to believe more towards what the boys would say. I think that they would probably be more truthful, less deceptive. But then the question comes, why are the parents not talking about that? Why are they trying to cover that piece, of that day? Why are they not saying the boys were playing hide and seek? Instead, they are saying that the boys were inside. And so that is very strange. But let me know what you guys think about that. How do you fit that in with everything else? Do you tend to believe that more? Maybe they were told to say that. I don't think that they were told to say that, because I think they would have been told more to stick with the other story, the planting flower story. And that way that would back up what Dawn is saying. So maybe that slipped out. They let that slip somehow, or they were outside without Summer playing hide and seek. Anyways, let me know in the comments what you make of that. How does that fit in, and how does that change things? These poor boys, you can't really put any blame on them because they're just kids, If something happened to Summer when they're playing hide and seek, there should have been an adult supervising, watching. Summer, as a 5-year-old, wouldn't have been left alone. If she was going to play hide and seek with her brothers, then there would have been a parent, should have been a parent, there to watch, like any of us that would have a 5-year-old. Then, of course, the 5-year-old would want to play with their brothers, a fun game of hide and seek. But still, as a parent, you'd be there watching and making sure that the 5-year-old is going to be safe. That is another piece of this story. Something else that somehow has to fit in. And I tend to believe it. And so, I don't know if that's really going to... if they're playing hide and seek, I don't think she would have gotten very far. Let's say she was hiding, then she's not going to be going further than maximum maybe 60 feet. She's not going to be going miles away. She's not going to be running off into the distance. She maybe went and hid behind a tree, if it is true, or could have possibly tripped, or maybe hid in one of those sheds, maybe in that gray house there, and maybe fell. Because those sheds are so old, if she went and hid in one of those buildings and maybe fell, or maybe like a piece of wood fell from one of those buildings, as you enter those sheds, you can see that a lot of them are kind of falling apart. The floor, that was one of the things that when the searches started, they said that they had to enter a lot of those sheds that are on those properties, and it was hazardous for those searchers to have to go into those buildings and putting their own lives in danger during the search, not only because of the rough terrain, but because of having to enter into those buildings and making sure that they're not going to step into something which is going to, let's say, sink beneath them. And so if that is what happened with Summer, that she went to go hide in one of those rotting old buildings, and then let's say she stepped onto a floor which caved in, and then she got stuck there. Either they found her or they didn't, or they found her too late and she was injured. And so I don't know, it's kind of odd. It's another piece, and I don't know how it's going to fit in, but I am interested to hear what you guys think about that. So please go ahead and leave your comment, and I will have a look at that. I look forward to seeing what you guys make of it. And I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a great end of your day, the rest of your weekend. Please turn on your notification bell so that I can have you back next time. Thank you so much, and bye for now.
Implications of the legal system and the law, but you couldn't classify it right now as there's no criminal charges been filed. This is a very complicated issue that has been made more complicated by the players in this drama. We make ourselves available to both the Sheriff's Office and the TBI to advise them as to the consequences of the next step that they're proposing to take, and how we can do it to where if there is eventually a prosecution, it'll be what they gather will be something that would be that we could introduce in a court. Make sure we cover all those bases. And
if an arrest ever does take place, that's when Armstrong will look at what charges can be filed.
If it ever got to the point where we were ready to consider charges, then of course they would talk to me about what charges and who to charge. And a case like this would generally go to a grand jury if it ever got to that point.